At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of the people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are multi-dimensional creators, creating both our own personal experience and our collective experience moment to moment. We invite you to join us as we reawaken this technology through experiment and experience our power to create and manifest.
Hello and welcome everybody to this week's Collective Imagination Show in our new time slot. I hope the change doesn't disrupt you too much and you can look at it as a nice end to your week or a good start to the weekend, wherever you are in the world. So thanks for joining us. Once again, we've of course got Michael Monk. Welcome, Michael.
Hey guys, glad to be here, doing good, and thanks for tuning in.
And this week we're joined by Charlie Guzman, one of Michael's Avatar Energy Mastery students. So it's lovely to meet you, Charlie.
Hi, nice to meet you as well.
I do know your
Thanks for having
name.
me.
I'm very familiar with you. So you haven't joined us on any of those shows before, so I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. And
Sure.
when it comes to people who are working consciously with energy like this, studying with Michael or otherwise, I'm always interested to find out what their background is and you know, had you been playing with working with energy consciously before? Did you sort of have innate abilities already? Where were you at then?
Before I met Michael and Avatar Energy Mastery, I was kind of aware of certain abilities that I had, but I did not know how to express them or to kind of harness my energy.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of aware of telekinesis, and that's something that has always kind of interested me. I've always found it fascinating, and I felt like I had the gift and ability to do it. So I would try on my own time, in my room or, wherever I was, sometimes in the car, even at a stoplight, I'd have a coin just kind of sitting there in the dash, and I'd pick it up and I'd try to move it, with my mind. And I could feel the connection, so to speak, but I didn't know how to really connect with it. And I didn't know fully, how to reach out with my mind or to reach out with my heart or my soul. And I was so unaware of all the things I've learned at energymastery.com. So it's definitely been a blessing to have a school where I can be surrounded by people that have experience with this and have knowledge to share with me, and I can feel open about my experiences as well.
Yeah. And how did you find Michael?
I found him through a YouTube video on telekinesis. I was looking up kind of how-to videos, and I was kind of frustrated at the time with myself because I just felt like I had all this power and strength inside of me that I was just waiting to let out, but I couldn't quite access it. And I found a guy, one of Michael's students, on YouTube, Trevor7, and he had mentioned, and at the end of one of his videos, that he was a student at AEMI. And at the time, I was kind of skeptical about, actual place that would teach other things aside from just telekinesis, and I didn't realize the interrelation between everything in the world and how it's all interconnected. So it was really neat when I saw it, because I kind of had to branch out for the first time and take a leap of faith and try something I'd never tried before by attending a school for this. There were many thoughts that kind of ran through my head regarding, what I was getting into and everything. I had my doubts, and I kind of came at it with a skeptical approach. But by keeping an open mind, it really allowed me to expand my heart and my mind, and learn a lot about myself and other people and how we're all the same underneath the shell that we live in.
So how have your own innate abilities progressed or evolved?
Oh, they've definitely taken a step in the right direction. I've been able to successfully do telekinesis now. That one is kind of cool, but I'd say the number one benefit for me would be the fact that I can connect with the world around me in a stronger way. I kind of realize telekinesis is more of a side effect of what I understand now, and through realizations, I've become a stronger person in general. How to connect with an object beyond just the five senses that we as humans have. So that's been the number one evolution for myself, I would say, is that I have, as a whole, just grown as a being. And with that, have been able to manifest certain things in my life that I could not do before, such as connecting with someone else's heart, looking them in the eyes and realizing that I'm right there with them, that time and space is a construct of my mind. Realizations such as that, lived out on a continual basis, breed results. And I can say strongly that it's changed my life. Like, my whole demeanor, my whole feeling in general every day is just so much more confident, so much more understanding, so much more connected to everything and everyone around me.
Can I ask how old you are? Like, what age group you're in?
I'm 28 years old, and my birthday was this past April, so I'm a young 28-year-old. Oh, thank you.
Are you finding with your peers that they're more open to, I don't know, this way of thinking of this spiritual understanding? It's because we're seeing lots of kids in their teens now, or even littlies, who are just like born wide awake. We're seeing people I am anyway, older people in their 60s and 70s even, who kind of went through the 60s and then went back into their shell, and are finding now it's okay to come back out again. But they've got all of this knowledge and all of this experience that they've just kept hidden for the last 20, 30 years, 40 years. And I'm just, I don't know, looking at different demographics. And to me, your age group has been the most cynical in some respects, because they're somewhere in the middle between looking at all the mistakes everybody, their parents and their grandparents' generations made. They're past that childhood and childish naivete where that's just the way it is, and they just express it. So yeah, I'm sort of finding that anywhere between early 20s to mid 30s is the most cynical right now. I mean, it can change, but that's what I'm finding. So how do you have a lot of friends in your age group that you can relate to?
In all honesty, I do not. They don't relate to me. They don't quite understand what I talk about when I mention things on my Facebook, or and because of that, I'm not really hesitant to tell them either, because I want to be a light to other people and kind of a beacon showing them the reality, of the matrix, so to speak, that they live in. And it's not really my mission, but nonetheless, I'm not going to hide the truth of what I am and who I am and what they are either. One thing that I have noticed is, since I post a lot of things, kind of viewpoints that I've learned and kind of made my own at AEMI. I post a lot of that on my Facebook, and I have conversations with people who see that, and they have questions for me about what I mean. I kind of grew up in a Christian background, fundamentalist Baptist.
My condolences.
Yeah, so they're very skeptical about pretty much every little thing that's not, from directly from the Bible. So if it, even though it's in the Bible, and if you look closely enough, everything I've learned is actually in the Bible. You just have to look closely enough. And I'm still a Christian myself, but I am, by their standards, completely way out there. You know, like I'm not on the same restrictive level as they are. They believe in rules and kind of living by a certain code of conduct that's been established by what they've learned through their churches and so forth. But for myself, I've always kind of been one to make my beliefs my own and experience and express my understandings as I've interpreted them, not based on what my mom thinks or what my stepdad thinks or, you know, what my family in general thinks or even what others think. I like to experience life because it's my journey. It's not really their journey to guide me completely and totally on. I understand that they have some responsibility for that, but and they do their best, but they think I'm pretty far out there, you know, when it comes to the things I learn at AEMI. And for my very close family, they don't even know I go attend that school. And I kind of have to keep that under wraps for the sake of their own worry and their own doubt. I don't want them to live a life of doubt, you know. And perhaps one day I'll sense a time where I can be free and open with them about that. But to answer your original question, I don't have many people I can relate to except for my family at AEMI, and that's what they kind of are to me as a family. You know, I definitely feel the connection with them and felt it from the very first day I was there.
Nice. Yeah, we're all finding our own little tribes, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael, the various rabbit holes that I go down from week to week tend to bring something different to this show. And okay, now in these shows we've been attempting to, no, I'm not going to say attempting, I think we have been embracing and transforming media, financial, CERN. I'm taking on a few things. But the past week has brought certain information back to me, actually, stuff that I've looked at in the past. And for some reason, it's all coming back up. I was reminded of I never know what to call these things because all these new age terms are kind of been corrupted. Whether you want to call it a vision, I'll say that. A knowing about the moon that I had back in 2009, I think it was. And in that, what I saw the matrix as a fishing net. And it was literally cast out like a big fishing net from the moon around the earth. And that there was a base on the moon, like a mainframe that was controlling this net. And in this net was a two-way system. It fed information into the collective, and it also monitored the collective. And there were like frequencies of fear and anger and just disturbances being fed into this thing all the time, and then reading the response. What I then saw was all of these points of light on the planet, which represented people, sending love. And I don't mean that kind of fluffy new age concept of love, but it was this absolute heart, true love frequency. I don't know how to explain. There are no words for what I saw and felt. Up into this grid, and it went straight back to the base and literally blew up the mainframe, and the whole thing collapsed. I was reminded of that this week. I was reminded of a connection between Saturn, the moon. I was reminded of a knowing. It's probably a better way of putting it. That this knowing of a connection between Saturn and the moon and the matrix. And I was contemplating the idea of how could, or if we should, or if it's possible to do something like this, to actually actively send this love frequency into the matrix, but not in such a way, not in the kind of Cobra-esque global meditation way, because that's not it. There's something fundamentally either missing or distorted about that for me. And I don't think it would take that many people. But to me, the frequency itself is what was key. I don't adhere to the whole idea that the 528 hertz is the frequency of love at all. There's something off about that. And it's not about a tone. It's not about a just feeling into your heart and feeling kind of light and fluffy love. It's something more concrete and definite about this feeling in this frequency that I'm trying to identify. And I don't know if you can help me identify it or not, or how to tap into it. But this feeling that if we can get enough people to achieve it within 10, when I think about it, when I feel into it, what I see is like the matrix screen numbers, just all starting to break down. It's like it sends a virus into the code. Charlie, I think it's your mic. If you could mute for a second when you're not talking, let's see if it's yours. Is that better, Biggie? No, it's not. Maybe it's Michael's.
Oh, I'll try muting mine and
see if it goes. Yeah, that could be it. So when you're not talking, if you wouldn't mind staying muted, Michael.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm trying to identify?
Well, I'd have to be there in that exact experience with you. I'd have to experience that frequency to really know that. As far as 528, I agree with you. From all of my experience, love isn't actually a frequency; it's a force that operates in the empty space that's between all things. It's like magnetism itself, and it can attract or repel. As far as the moon, from all my experience, I'm always saying that we're the projectors of this reality. That it does indeed come from within. So when we see the celestial objects, we're seeing representations, like physical representations of what's located within us. And what I found the moon to be is the primary location of Earth-based dream time, which is why when you're in parallel Earth realities, why you can fly and levitate, but not so well. You're not completely free. There's like a lesser gravity there. So from what I've seen, it's like a sphere of consciousness that we as Earth-based consciousness use to exercise in dream time. But that makes sense that it would constantly be sending information, back to this portion of ourself, and that, because we haven't unified in dream time in that way, or at least not the bulk of humanity. There's little portions within the collective that have that. Try to have ownership over different portions of the Earth-based dream time. So I think everything that you experience is legitimate in that way, and that there'll come a point when the masses obtain enough consciousness to where we'll have a unified dream time, and that's what I'm feeling into is what you saw.
So, based on that, if enough of us were to achieve this particular very heart-based frequency, could we influence in a positive way the collective by even just maybe overwhelming or nullifying the negativity in the matrix?
Most definitely. I mean, like I said, I'd have to be there in the experience with you to know for sure. But there is a heart-based vibration or level of density that I reach quite often. I'm not there all the time, but it's where, in the meditations, I'm always leading us inward and closer to our core, where there's a point you hit where it feels like your heart freezes. Like normally the heart is like located on the left side of the chest, but when you collapse your energies all the way in, there's like a zero point that you hit in your high heart where it feels like your physical heart dissolves and it becomes this solid rock crystal that's like emitting this super high blasting blaring frequencies, and they're pretty much all powerful. Like when I'm doing that type of energy in person with somebody else, if I magnetize to that degree into my heart, a side effect of that often is my body will take over their physical functions. Like their heart will skip and leap and come to my heartbeat, and then my breath will actually breathe their lungs. Like they'll begin to breathe, involuntarily. It's like that powerful of a force, when you obtain it. So that could be what you saw, is that enough people obtain that crystalline density into their heart energy where it collapses to zero point, like I was discussing. But I do know when you're in that energy, everything surrenders to it, because A, it's very powerful, and B, it's supremely harmonic and beautiful. Like it's just the most amazing feeling.
Okay, there's a few people in the chat room that I'd love to ask. Does this feel like a project for us? Is this something that resonates? Use that overly used word. To try and achieve that point that he's talking about, that magnetic higher heart spot, and I don't know, just blast the matrix itself. And for me, there is a very definite connection to the moon. So whether it's because it's a Dreamtime thing, whether it's a physical mainframe base, who knows? But Mark Hose is saying, "Yeah, baby." Boom.
Boom.
And it'd be interesting to monitor something like that and see whether we can see the results out there. I'd like to ask you too, Michael, because you're so grounded, earth-based. What's come up for you? What you've sensed, if anything, over the last week? Because there's been some interesting experiences for myself and many others, and some interesting information that's come out to explain those. So, to give you an example, I was told that a large chunk of the astral, whatever you want to call that, or see that to be, was literally taken out. It was cleansed. It was, the negativity within it was recycled. There's lots of different ways you could say it. Over the course of this last week, and the earth herself, or itself, I know you say it's a projection of us and all that stuff, but the consciousness of the earth itself took care of that. And there are those of us who are very earth connected who have played a role in holding that space, and it's why we've been so wiped out.
Well, I can say over this last week, like during last summer, when my extreme activation started happening, I entered into a completely different type of consciousness than I normally do. Like normally I was traveling the higher planes, in the various energy bodies, and, exploring the universe. And last summer there was like a 3-month period where I would contract in during my sleep time or during my dream time instead of going out. and I would go into the center of my chest, into this crystalline heart structure. Like as I would pass out to go to sleep, my heart would, my chest would like magnetize and then solidify into this rock hard. Like it's even more solid than a crystal. It's really hard to explain, but it feels like your entire energies compress into this supreme sphere, like a diamond, like just a rock solid crystalline core in the center of your chest. And my consciousness would go in there, and what I ended up discovering that it was, it's like a supercomputer, and it's an omnipresent, omnipotent intelligence that we are all sourced from. Like I discovered that we all have this within us. Like we all share this same heart. Like the same force that beats my heart is the same force that beats yours. Space and time being a mental construct, as I've explained many times, we're just experiencing slightly different vibrations that are radiated from the one heart. And that paints a picture of space and time. Tells you you're in Australia, tells me that I'm right here, but we're actually in that same space, in that same source energy. And I began merging my human consciousness with that divine consciousness, and I mean, it's insane. Like the experience barely even translates, because it's not even slightly like the same type of consciousness, but in like a half of a second of human time, this heart-based consciousness can instruct millions of humans, give them dreamtime experiences. It can inspire scientists and mathematicians and movie makers. It can inspire songwriters. Like it can do, like, I can't even put gigabyte, terabyte, quadrazillion, mega Gullion bytes of information. I mean, it's insane, like how much in just one singular thought from there. But I came out of that level towards like the fall of last year. But this last week, I got pulled back in there for the first time in many months. So I had like 2 nights of dream time where I'm just in this vast supercomputer and sending out just mega amounts of information with just a tiny flick of the mind, which, in that place is like a highly super compressed crystalline computer.
You know, what you're calling this computer sounds to me like the consciousness of the planet, sending these signals out to these extensions of her, is one way to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
in order to inspire the action that needs to take place next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate way to look at it. It's just important to understand at all times when you're saying her or Earth or all the little parts, that we're all one.
I don't say globe anymore.
It's important to understand that we're all a part of that, and not only are we a part of it, but you are the whole thing too. Each individual is the whole entire thing. So while we're in this human embodiment, we're an extension of the earth-based consciousness. But when each and every one of us is capable of contracting in and literally becoming that of which you speak. So, it's also important to understand, well, the primary one to understand is the oneness, the unity, the absolute, that we are all extensions of that and capable of being that at the same time, if you can, evolve your consciousness enough. That's the primary, because we're so used to viewing ourselves as separated individuals, completely disconnected from everything. Once the unity consciousness is obtained, though, then it becomes important again to acknowledge the individual parts. There's a lot of people in this journey of their own I amhood, when they realize that their connection to these supreme intelligences, that there's tends to be a period of ownership, where you're like, well, I am God, I am Gaia, I am Christ, I am, this and that. And there's a truth to that. But when you forget the individual parts, like the moment you state that you are those things is the moment that you're not, because those parts of the universal intelligence don't even think in words. So if you're expressing that in words, you can be rest assured that you've departed, from that state of consciousness. And it's nobody's fault. Everybody at some point during their evolution, while they integrate all these vast portions of the universal collective, you're going to have your periods of godhood where you step out of your shell and proclaim yourself, with great power. And when people are doing that, it's good to just step aside and let them have their moment. We always recover from it, and all of us go through it. And the lack of judgment is really important there in all of this. It's by not having that level of judgment that you're able to get into these supreme states of consciousness in the first place. Because for one, if you're going to merge with the Earth star, or whatever you want to call it, you could give it many different names. During that time period, I called it the Earth star, and it's that diamond supercomputer, in the center of our chest. But in order for you to even get in there, you've got to merge. You've got to literally become the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the sinful, the dreadful, the guilty, the innocent. You have to become all of that. And if you're holding judgments within yourself, and you're unwilling to see yourself as being all of that, then that's an instant blockade towards you obtaining it. It's important for us to all remember that our concepts of good and bad, or righteousness and evil, or the light and the dark, these are all based on our current physical embodiment. So evil, for example, like we relate that to physical things in our existence within time. So in this physical body, we can experience pain. We can experience loss. Somebody can die and disappear from our life. We can experience lack. We can starve. We can not have enough water. We can be hurt emotionally. We're subjected to all of these things. But in the other layers of consciousness that we've already mastered, we're eternal there. Nobody dies. Pain is impossible to feel. There's because you're evolved beyond that energy. We exist eternally within that. So how do you define bad and evil from that standpoint? All of a sudden, like, what's the possibility? There isn't even a possibility of evil. So all of this is just one giant learning curve for the entire collective consciousness, the entire thing that we're doing here on Earth. And there's really no accidents to it. There is a supreme intelligence that's guiding all the steps so that the individual parts can learn what they need to learn. But that being said, a lot of people tap into that and they understand it. And so they tend to sit on their hands and do nothing and say, well, hell, everything's in perfect divine order, so I'm not going to do anything. But the actions that you take are a part of that perfect divine order. So just because everything happens for a reason, and that the ones that are working the dark energy or pulling the wool over humanity's eyes, just because they're a part of the divine plan too, doesn't mean that you sit back and do nothing, because the steps to make this world a better place are also a part of that divine plan. So
well, to me, that's the big new age deception. Is you don't have to do anything because it's all perfect.
I agree. Mark says in the chat, Marcosa, Michael, will you talk about the sun being the center of the galaxy universe idea again? It seems like our core is somehow, but I'm also wondering how the distant core of the galaxy relates to our overall projection. Thoughts you can share from what you experience. Okay, well, from what I've seen...
Is this the conversation you had last week when I wasn't here?
Yeah, we were talking about that briefly. I think we've talked about it a couple of times when you weren't on, just about how the different spheres that we see as external from us are manifestations or representations of what's within. And he asked me about the galactic central sun, and I explained that the stars aren't what we think they are, that there's a vast difference between a star and a sun, that there's really only one sun, and that's the one that we see shining in our sky. That what we see as the stars are they're like future suns. Like it's really hard to explain. But when your clairvoyance opens up and you're able to fully see energy and perceive the different densities to all of this, you realize that humanity's been led quite a bit astray by looking through the telescopes without first understanding that we form the reality that we see. The further away something is from center or from your core, from within, the lighter density it is, or the less substance that it's actually formed of. So we are the creators of physical space-time, each and every human, and we're the densest, the most realist manifestation of the entire onion layers that go outwards from this. So when we look up at the sky, at the stars, we're seeing little pinpoints of information or of light that exists within us. Whereas when we look up at the sun, there's a blazing, radiant ball of infinite light and massive heat. So time is interwoven into space perfectly, like a fabric. So when something is further away from you, it's further away in time. So like when we look out at the stars, they are light years away from us. They're ahead. They're in the future. So it's actually pretty divine from that standpoint, because the plan is pretty amazing. There's a central source, a radiant massive ball of energy, and it's got a great destiny. All these children, or what you could say that the stars are, that are one day going to be even bigger and brighter, than what started it or what spawned it. It doesn't mean that they're not, and this is where it gets tricky. They are real. They are suns in a different level of energy, in a lighter density or a lesser density of energy. What we see through the telescopes is indeed solar systems with planets going around them and everything, but they're formed of a lesser compression of energy, and E equals mc squared. So obviously lighter does mean lesser. It doesn't mean more, like a lot of new age thinking gets you to believe. On that same note, we are the stars. Like, this is all one giant consciousness expressing itself as many different parts, and each and every human has an aspect of themselves on each and every star world that there is. You're not even able as consciousness to perceive something, see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, feel it, unless you are that, because reality is a projection, from what's within. So I was explaining, that there really is only one sun, and it's the source of all life, and there really is only one planet, and it's the source of all the structure. So there's two main principles that work in creating universes or worlds in the way that we are currently in this projection, which is the only one our consciousness understands, by the way. But that's worlds of love and light. And everybody's heard that term, love and light, love and light. Well, what are these two things? It's not just some fluffy term where I'm going to send you some love and some light. Light is vibration, and that's a primary universal force. Love is gravity, or a force that binds, and it's these two primary forces of which everything is formed from. So you could say that Earth is the love and the sun is the light, but once again, you got to remember these are projections of what's within. So the Earth is a gravity pattern, a primary pattern of structure and gravity, the base design of which all the other worlds are formed out of. Basically, all of the star worlds are variations on Earth, and they're accelerated through time. So I know it's getting really complicated and hard to understand, but
Sorry, I was muted when I was talking to you then. It's
okay.
sometimes hard to keep up with you because you're actually commingling perspectives and dimensions, and it's from this one it's this, and 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 getting all that straight in your head's tricky. Mark in the chat room said, so that feels to me like our heart core would be the strongest sun as well as the strongest core black hole. Question.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem that it's all connected and both really booming out and compressing in, point and periphery as one in resonance.
Right. I mean, and it's important to understand that all of these locations are in that heart. So the Earth is a projection from within. The Sun is a projection from within. The Sun is a physical representation of the source of all energy, endless energy spilling outward, and that's within us. The Earth is a representation of ultimate compression or holding gravity into form, and that's also within us. So the heart is both the Sun and the planet that you're standing on. And from there, it's important not to get too hung up on the heart necessarily either, because everything is quantum. Quantum understanding is basically,
Oh, great. At another level.
well, this one's not too complicated. I mean, something is only in a singular time and space because we're observing it to be there. Everything is actually everywhere until we make an observation, at which point it's in a singular point. So I'm just saying that because I don't want people to get overly hung up, on the heart, because your heart is also your root, your heart is also your foot, your head, and everything else. But within the human embodiment, it is most comfortable to hold all of that energy in that location. But it's important to understand that it's everywhere. It's just by observations that we make that something seems to be in a particular space.
Okay. Where do I go with that?
You don't have to remember it. It's not that important. I just like to make these clarifications.
Okay, because I mean, I'm having some. Ooh, I've just had breakfast delivered. Excuse me. I'm having, throughout the course of any week, a variety of different conversations, a variety of different interactions or rabbit hole research. It's all coming from very wildly different perspectives, right? And then I throw your information into the mix and try and integrate it all.
You're a brave woman.
That is my life, yeah. So it's almost like I can only take one perspective at a time.
Yeah.
Because it'll totally make sense. The structure of, I mean, even let's just take one example: the flat Earth stuff that's come up, right? I can make total sense of that in my own head about what this reality looks like in that physical, taking a infinite plane concept, and that the sun itself in this model is not as big and is not as far away as we are told. And I can get a very, very clear understanding and picture of this on a 3D level and what the stars are, even. And then you come in and throw it all, because what if stars, let's just take stars for example, like any web or fishing net, as I referred to it earlier, it requires these points of connection. What if the stars are in fact points of connection in this web, as well as everything else you've just said?
Oh yeah, they are.
I mean, if
Each
go
ahead.
No, go on.
Each star has a location within your mind. Each one represents a cluster of neurons within the brain. As within, so without. There's a picture that's been circulating for a while where it shows like a human neural network, a picture of that, and then a picture of the universe, like a Hubble telescope type thing, and the two look identical. So what the stars are is an echo of our mind, and each
Oh, see, don't go
star
there.
has a location.
No, don't get it, because you're going to end up with me putting my tin foil hat conspiracy hat on and telling you that I'm not convinced that those images that we are shown out, supposedly out there, that just happen to look like an eye or an iris or a brain, or aren't exactly that. That they're not just, in fact, magnified images of human functions, human body parts, whatever. Oh, look, that's what. Isn't it interesting that that looks just like?
It very well could be,
Right.
and I'm not testifying on. I just use that to help people understand. I mean, the way I discovered this was through my integration practice of doing soul mass expansions. Next thing you know, my consciousness is inside the star, and I can feel its location within my head. I can feel my head within the star, and then I can send energy to these different parts of my mind, and the stars will twinkle in accordance with it. And it's something that I've taught many students, and you get to a certain point where it's just undeniable that the stars have a location, and inside of you. And then from there, I just have done my best to help people understand it in a way that's not too offensive, because of everything we've been taught and learned through science, through the telescopes and the microscopes, without first understanding that we form the physical reality through our five senses.
Okay, I'm with you. What's Mark saying now? Lisa, it's all one ciggy at a time. Be the ciggy. The ciggy is the neutron pulling it all together. Yeah, the ciggy definitely keeps my world together. All right. Well, when I did ask earlier about trying to get into that place, maybe today we could work at least towards that, to trying to find it and achieve that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll dedicate a meditation
maybe
entirely
taking on the matrix.
Yeah, and I did a healing session with a guy in the Netherlands just a few days ago, and I blended consciousness with him, and he got there spontaneously. Like, he says, "Oh my God, there's like a steel band around my heart." Like, that's how he described it. So it's definitely possible through distance merging for me to help people get into that state of consciousness. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea for the meditation. And speaking of stars, you should ask Charles about his experience, because right before he started Avatar, a new star appeared in his sky. That's I should just let him tell the tale.
Yeah, do tell.
He showed us videos of it too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to talk about that. It's for a while, about 2 years before I joined AEMI, once in a great while I would see the star in the sky, and it was extremely bright, like probably 3 times as bright as all the other ones, much bigger as well. And it would kind of move in front of me no matter where I was going, driving a car, coming home from work, etc. And it was once in a great while. Like, it wasn't up all the time, and I always kind of felt a connection to it, and I felt like it was literally following me, or kind of leading me, because when I'd turn a corner, it would be in front of me again. No matter where I would turn, it would be there, as long as I was moving. And I used to find that pretty exciting, and I didn't really know what to make of it. At the time, it was just kind of like, that's really cool. It's a little odd. I didn't really make any connections to it. But the very next day after joining AEMI, I saw the star again. And every night since, I've been with my soul family there at AEMI. I have seen the star every single night. Even on cloudy nights, it's out. I can see it through the clouds. It's so bright. Unless it's extremely heavy clouds. But I do have YouTube videos of it, and I was told by Michael and a couple other people. I talked about it on the forums at our school, which again, it's really helpful to have other people's input like that. But they were saying that it's a manifestation of myself, perhaps. And I mean, Michael has also said at certain times that he's kind of wary about telling me directly what it is, and that it's kind of my journey to discover what that is. But I believe it's from me, and it has consistently been with me ever since I've joined AEMI on a very strong basis, to the point where I've used binoculars, taken a look at it, and it is a diamond shape with 3 different colors on it. At the top, it's dark blue. It looks like a pyramid, an upside down pyramid. At the top, it's dark blue, and then it turns into a white color, and then at the bottom of the tip, it's kind of an orangish red, and the whole thing is just glowing when I looked at it in binoculars. And in the middle, there's a person, like the shape of a person, or it looks like maybe a cross. When I first saw it, I thought a person. And the person's arms are outstretched horizontal to the ground, and their legs and feet are together. If you can kind of get that image in your mind of this black being standing within this diamond with those 3 colors, like almost it's an aura coming off of it. And it comes twice a night, and it stays for about 2 hours at a time. It comes around, I'd say 9:30 p.m. till about 11:30, and then it will kind of fade off into the distance. And then around 2:00 p.m. every night, it comes back for another hour and a half or so, and then finally fades off again into the distance. And it does move. If I were to go out, like sometimes I'll take a walk or go on a bike ride, and there's windy paths in where I live, and it will literally keep moving to always be in front of me no matter where I am. So I always found that fascinating, and I guess a feeling of being honored or respected or understood is kind of there, and blessed. I feel like I'm very blessed to have it, and I don't understand the full connection to it. I have tried to merge with it at times by placing my consciousness inside of it, but I am not at where Michael is to the degree that he has experienced his abilities. So I'm not as able to understand or merge with it to that degree yet, as much as I'd like. But that's pretty much the synopsis of the star that visits me. I think it's a pretty amazing thing, and it only proves further what Michael's saying about how we manifest certain things in our realities.
You know what would be a fun exercise? You know that
What's
phone,
that?
that phone app you can get that where you can just point it up to the sky and it identifies the stars?
Oh, I didn't know about that. No.
Oh yeah. Get one and point it up to it and see what Google has to say.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm gonna go turn on my lamp. I'm sorry, guys. It's getting a little dark in my room here. I don't know if you can even see me.
Yeah, well, no, we can.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be fun. See whether your phone goes, that doesn't exist, or oh yeah, that's cool, so and so. There we go. All right. Well, if you guys are feeling comfortable and ready, do you want to get going on start on this meditation, Michael?
Yeah, and I call that state of energy that I'm going to take people into the crystal heart, or the diamond heart is my perfect preference for what it is, but it's just a supremely state of compressed energy, right? That's when you get in there, it becomes very obvious that that density or that compression level of energy is what is sourcing everything external from us. So it might seem like you're compressing energy to get in there, but you're really compressing your consciousness to get into an energy that already exists. So, all right.
Okay. Well, I'll go off camera as usual, and leave you to it. You're going to be pulling Charles in to do certain things in this?
He's done quite a few meditations with me. We do group meditations in Avatar Energy Mastery Institute, which is what he means every time he says AEMI. That's acronym for my school. our school. So yeah, he'll be helping me. Him and I have a good, through our weekly mergers, he's got my energy signature down pat. So everything that I'm doing, he's going to be magnifying and helping. So I'm going to be using quartz crystal just as an aid to my consciousness to help achieve this. I basically am able to internalize anything that's external through the energy practices that I've done, and they provide a good aid to help us find internal states of being that are within us. Some of you will obtain this. You'll get the sensations that we're going for and obtain the state of consciousness that we do, and your dream time will vastly change as a result from that. You'll catch snippets of what I've been experiencing, being in that heart diamond supercomputer where just a flick of a thought equals everything that I described, inspiration, worldwide inspiration, millions of dreams to millions of people. Some of you will get it in different levels. So just because you don't reach that supremely compressed, radiant, cooling diamond energy in your chest doesn't mean that it didn't have no effect or that it was a failure, because these things go in steps, and your higher self, God, source, the collective consciousness, these parts of ourself know what we're ready for and what we're not, and at the same time our free will is honored. So the work that we do to obtain higher states of consciousness is very much required and a part of all of this. So we can't just sit back and wait for higher self and God and source and collective consciousness to determine when we're ready for the next upgrade, because if we're not doing any work, the answer is going to be never. But the reason why I said that is that there are these other parts of our unified being, to where if we try to open a door to something that's too much for us right now, then there are these safety measures that the one consciousness that experiences itself as many different parts monitors and protects for this part of ourself that we call human. All right. Okay, that being said, I want everybody to roll your shoulders a bit, arch your back, straighten it out. The biggest clog point in the human consciousness is in the solar plexus, and that's due to our bad posture. We tend to be hunched over from all the activities we do, the cell phones, the computers, driving the cars. So to straighten that, you really got to compensate the other way. Roll your shoulders back and just push your solar plexus forward until your back feels painfully straight. And that's where you want to be. You want your feet flat on the floor and about shoulder width apart, and your hands resting comfortably in your lap. Now we're going to do what we always do and go into the heart-based consciousness, which is simply taking what's in our head and dropping it down in our chest. You can feel inside your chest, you can feel inside your head, so obviously consciousness is present in both places. Understanding that everything is quantum, you're just holding an awareness of yourself in this location that you call head. So you want to take what's there and drop it down into the chest. Simple as that. You can use a visualization that your chest is like a warm frying pan and your head is like butter. And just begin to let your head melt on down into your chest. And it's in this high heart space that we are all one. So the energy that I'm sending, that I'm emitting, that I'm joining with you will automatically be there. I feel a lot of you already. Now, as I said before, we are connecting here outside of space and time. Space and time are mental constructs created by the neural structure in our brain. It's a way we have of interpreting these vibrations that emanate from source, which is within us, which is within each of us. The same source is within all of us. You're currently examining a slightly different vibration than me, so it's painting a picture of space and time to your consciousness, telling you that you're in your room, in another state, in another country perhaps. But the truth is that we are right on top of each other. The same force that beats your heart is the same force that beats my heart. We're just experiencing different ranges of vibration, and we're having a picture of separation painted to our consciousness through the brain. But in the heart, we're all one. Okay, so from here, I'm going to begin to magnetically attach to you guys, because I have an ego too. I'm able to help find you guys by spanning the two different types of consciousness, the heart source and the brain, or the ego. By spanning those two types of consciousness, I can reach out to you guys through the heart and find what location in that quantum field you're currently holding, and then use a bit of magnetism to encourage you, like to give you a little tug to come deeper inward and towards source. So when you start to feel this tugging, it can feel like a weight, or it can feel like a pressure, or it can feel like a vacuum. Just relax and just trust it and let it pull you in. Let it do its thing. Let it compress you closer to source. You're going to see that what at first starts out as like a heavy feeling or a suffocating feeling is actually you being brought into a much vaster energy. It's very important not to think thoughts. I can talk without thinking, so it doesn't really hinder me that much. But when you think, you're literally pulling yourself into past and future. Whereas if you focus entirely upon what you're feeling, you remove your consciousness out of the past and out of the future, and you come into an energy that could be called the now moment. The closer you are to now, the closer you are to source, which means the further deep inside of your own chest and closer to the heart that you are. So focus entirely on what you're feeling. Put the sum entirety of your conscious awareness into the center of your chest. Nothing else even exists. Take the feeling of your feet on the floor, stick it in your chest. Take the feeling of the air against your skin, stick it in the center of your chest. Take my voice that's talking to you, stick it in the center of your chest, because nothing else even exists. Okay, I'm going to keep connecting. I feel quite a few of you in this core state of consciousness, and I feel even more on the outskirts. So you guys that are in and really tight in that heart energy, stay right where you're at, and I'm going to expand a little bit and gather a few more and magnetically encourage them to come in closer to the heart. You guys that are already there can help me by using your breath as a conscious symbol and externalizing your breath around you in a sphere, and on your in-breath use magnetism to draw consciousness closer into the source. Okay, now from here, I'm just going to go quiet for a few minutes, and I'm going to completely freeze this level of vibration and begin to solidify all of us that are in the heart. And it might feel like your heart's being compressed, like your heart might stop. Don't just ignore those sensations, because right when you get past those is the supreme energy. I've been there countless times. There's a little bit of physical discomfort to get there, but once you get there, you're exposed to an energy that's greater than anything that animates the physical body. And from there, you're completely comfortable and always will be. Okay, I'm going to start crystallizing and cooling now. So what we're aiming for is to hit 0 point. So if energy is coming into you from all directions, from 360 degrees, there's only so far it can go until it hits 0. Like until it hits a collapse point where there's no more room to come in. And what happens at that point is there's no more room left to go except for back out. At that point, you're now in infinite 0 point energy, and your heart center has become an active 0 point energy generator. In other words, energy goes infinitely in and infinitely out at the same time. But you can't even think about generating this 0 point energy until you've received all the way into zero, because you have to be receiving to be outputting. That's the nature of 0 point. So understanding that, if you're drawing energy in and you're feeling the vacuum, but you start having these ego-based thoughts of like, well, I don't know about this because I'm taking energy and not giving energy. Well, such is not the case. You need to get your consciousness in all the way to 0 point, and when you hit that collapse point, there's nowhere left to go but back out. And from that moment forward, every single bit of energy that you receive equals the amount of energy that you give. It's completely balanced. So knowing that, let's remove all of those ego blocks, all of our humanized ideas of this, and let's all collapse into 0 point together. Receive in from 360 degrees till there's nowhere left to go but back out. And it'll do it by itself. You don't have to do anything except allow your consciousness and your energy to collapse into zero. Okay, I'm just going to go quiet for about 2 or 3 minutes and hold the 0 point energy in the crystal heart and help as many of you as possible get there. Okay. You guys can all come out of it at your own speed. I know it's hard to think and talk after you've been there, but give us some feedback if you guys would in the chat. And Lisa, how was that for you?
The compression was intense. Right here, and all the way up to like here. Not that much.
Were you able to hit zero where the pressure turns into like an outward explosion of energy?
Not quite.
Yeah.
I think I was on the verge though. Okay, everybody back. Wakey, wakey.
Charles, go ahead and tell us what you experienced in that meditation.
Well, I experienced initially, from the very start, I focused on what you had said on placing my consciousness in my chest. And when I did that and you started bringing everyone together, I felt the other people's energies. I could feel the other people as a group collectiveness, but also individually. Kind of unrecognizable energies this time because I'm not used to merging with this group 100%, but I did recognize you, Michael. More specifically, I felt kind of a tension in my heart area. It wasn't a compression as much as it was just a feeling for me as just like my whole pectoral area was just really tense. And I also, when you started using the crystals, I could feel this warm energy around me, and I got really hot. And finally, there came a point where I was doing what you had mentioned about receiving the energy till 0 point. And then there came a point through our exercise where it just kind of, I felt like it had to be released. It was just too much, and it just boomed outwards. So that was my experience, and even right now, like I still feel a little bit of tension in my heart area, which I think is a good sign, because it just means that it's residual energy, and my focus is probably still there a little bit as well. But yeah, it was a very powerful experience, and it's something that I feel boosted my energy levels a lot, and connected me to all of you guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, blending with the groups like that. Like you can, feel how the listeners of the radio show feel different than our smaller groups that we do in Avatar Energy Mastery. You can feel the very moment, everybody begins to connect because everybody has a location within the quantum field. Like one listener might be here, another one might be here, another one might be there, and then we can all together, and I have a location within each one of them, and so do you. Like we're each experiencing a different version of the same thing.
I'm still
right. It was
intense sensation right here.
Yeah, me too. I also wanted to mention something. You mentioned cold energy, and at one point you had mentioned that sometimes heat reflects kind of tension, or I don't know how you say it. When like when you rub your hands together, friction or.
Right, heat is resistance. Like in electricity, if we want to create heat, we run a current through a resistor, and that makes heat. So wherever you're feeling heat when you do energy means that you have a resistance there or a blockage, which is good. I mean, the heat means that it's being erased, it's being burned off. Cold energy is not necessarily easy to obtain. Frozen energy is very, very hard. Like that's very high level when you actually freeze. And I mean, that's crystallizing. That is achieving crystallization. And I've done that a few times and witnessed other people. And I mean, body parts freezing solid, like radiating frost, like even making a sound like as it freezes solid. And that's like obtaining a compression level to your energy where you have a permanency within the physical manifestation instead of a constant movement. So at first, as I'm teaching people to do cold energy, like you've experienced a bit on the webinars, and other people have too, and like we have dogmas about cold energy. that ghosts are cold, or just things from our life where cold equals bad, and these ego imprints can mess it up. But as you begin to experience this cooling energy all through you, this icy energy, it's radiant, it's beautiful, it's divine, like it's a awesome blissful feeling. It's a complete feeling where you don't need anything because you feel so damn good. And that's the feminine side, that we all have within us. That's the feminine side that holds the pattern, as I was explaining. Like, whereas the solar side, emits the light, the ice or the crystal, the cold, holds the pattern by which the light forms into something. So yeah, it takes a lot of worthiness to be able to freeze or to be able to crystallize. Like, you have to feel divine, you have to feel perfect, you have to feel worthy of receiving energy all the way in, to your center point. And that's a trait that I've come to label as feminine. You go into your feminine, you feel your beauty, you feel your worthiness to receive, and then that energy or your consciousness can get all the way into zero. And then once you get there, there's nowhere left to go but back out. And the next thing you know, you're shining and receiving at the same time, which is what the sun is doing. It's both at the same time simultaneously. That's fifth dimensional 0 point energy. Without the reception, there is no giving. Without the giving, there is no reception. Like, it becomes one and the same thing.
Which, masculine is very much pushing kind of force, giving, whereas, feminine's very sensitive and receptive and understanding.
Yep.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Mark too. Maggie in the chat is saying that Mark dropped out. Maybe the energy clogged up his computer circuits.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, Maggie said she was able to feel the compression, but thoughts kept breaking her away from it, and that she loves the feeling of the cold shell around her during these sessions. No, Mark, no. Just zoning in the zone. So how was that for you, Mark? Don't want to kick it out. And he's still there. Okay. Well, enjoy, Mark. He loves it. Loves that state. Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. I go in there for about an hour every day. Just stay there and radiate, through my whole body. And, it's nice to spend an hour without thinking one single thought.
So, Mark, did you get to the point of the expansion? Like, did you feel the compression and then have it expand? Oh,
yeah, it sure is.
Feeling you guys is awesome in that place. It's a nourishing food. Nice. Whew, okay. Well, as usual, after we've done that, we're all a little bit gaga. And conversation tends to come to an end. Yeah, and he did feel that, the compression and then the expansion. Good. Well, I'm hoping this time slot works for everybody. It's been good today. I've really enjoyed it. Great conversation. So thank you both.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Well, hopefully we'll see you again.
Oh, I hope so. I hope to see you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely have you on again, Charles. And thanks for coming on. And, Biggie, thanks for doing the background. And Lisa, thanks for being the divine being that you are. Big thanks to the audience, and soul family is what you are. As you see, we're all soul family. We're just breaking down these ego barriers that have been erected through this life and many other lives. We're coming back to the one, which means we're all becoming one again. And it's a beautiful thing, being on your own and just your own energy. It's like being a little light, and if you put two flames together, They start small. You light two flames on two lighters, stick them together. They become one flame of a much bigger size than either one was before. And it no longer matters which one was bigger, which one is smaller. They're both the same size, and they're huge. And this has been labeled many things. Christ consciousness is one thing, that I call it. And Charles is very, he was raised on the Bible, and I sort of was too, but that's what Jesus meant when he said, "Be one with me as I am one with the Father." It means, coming into unity consciousness. And so appreciate all of you guys, and appreciate sharing soul with you.
Well, there's a love fest going on in the chat room right now, and a request from Mark to do the sun exercise again next week. It's a good tune-up. So maybe next week we can try this again, and then also go into because what we didn't do this week was go into that space where we use that energy to create for ourselves and for each other.
Definitely.
And see how we go. But Mark also sees some really good things happening on the global scene that are a direct reflection of what we do on these shows. So that's always a good sign, good confirmation. Because I know Mark has got a finger in every pie and totally on the pulse. Nothing goes on this planet without him knowing about it. So.
Yeah, Mark's asking me to remind about the sun exercise. Are you saying do that now, or go over that with her so she can do it during the week? Do you want me to do a? Okay, yeah. Last week, if you didn't watch a show, I outlined a solar meditation at the end of it that I wanted everybody to do because it's very profound. Okay, good. Yeah, Mark says it's looking awesome. Yeah. Well, the solar exercise is basically you realize that feelings are the universal language of communication. And by that, I mean emotions and sensations. So you lay underneath the sun or sit underneath it. You feel the sun shining against your face and your chest, and realize that how that sunlight feels against the skin of your body is not a private thing. That feeling of the sunlight is actually you communicating with the sun. And by putting the fullness of your consciousness into how the sunlight feels against the skin of your body, will begin to drop the skin barrier to where you'll get that feeling, that warmth of the sunlight literally inside of yourself as well as just on your skin. Once it gets inside of you, you acknowledge the sun as being an entity, as being a consciousness. Like, that you're one with everything, that it all comes within, sure, but you also acknowledge the sun as being a different consciousness oriented in a different way. It's a pattern of intelligence that is different than our human embodiment. So once you've merged with it, you acknowledge it as a being and give it freedom to move within you. And once you do that, it'll begin to send different emissions and vibrations. Have your eyes closed so that the sun can work with you through your inner vision. And everybody knows how you can, with your eyes closed, you can still see the sun. It appears as like a bright yellow or white or orangish glob in your vision. Well, that is the sun. That's not just a representation of it. That is the sun as you're seeing it in a energetic matrix site, which is what your eyes closed vision is. So you acknowledge that and give it permission to move, and it'll begin to change its location and communicate with you telepathically. And it's a big time activation. If you want more specifics on how to do the meditation, just go to the archives on Lisa's website, lisamharrison.com, and watch the end of the show, and I describe it in intricate detail. But that's the gist.
I mean, that's a lot of what I do when I sun gaze anyway. I do spend certain amounts of time with my eyes closed after I've done the eye open exercise. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. For change. Okay, Magentica. All right, so this is last week's archive, which is on the website. I think, yes. So if you go there and you can rewatch the last few minutes of last week's show. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Everybody in
everybody.
the chat
Thanks,
room.
Charles.
You're welcome.
And everybody listening who's not in the chat room. Thank you for participating.
Yeah, love you guys. Have a great week.
Love to you all.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
At this pivotal time of humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of the people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise.